welcome to all our listeners online today. Thanks for joining us. This is a very special webinar directed at helping bookkeepers through the quality management system maze. I'm not going to say quality management system every time because it'll take 3 days to finish it. We're going to shorten that to QMS. QMS. Look, it's a big hello to you, mate. Haven't seen much of you over the last month. What have you been up to?
Well, as you know, mate, I've been working on ABN's resources to help BAS agents through the challenge of documenting their QMS. And, eyes are a bit, need toothpicks at the moment to hold them open. But I guess we're at a really good point at the moment. We're feeling comfortable and confident that we can get a lot of our BAS agents through the eye of the QMS needle by the required date on the 30th of June. So
that's a win.
There we are. Yep. Now, Pete, there's a hell of a lot in this webinar.
There is.
So we're going to share a slide deck eventually.
Yeah.
But so we might have a little bit of a look at what we're going to do today. So you do that, and I'll get slides organised.
All right. So today we are going to cover a fair bit of territory. We are going to look at. For a start, we're going to look at the legislation, so what brought us to be sitting here where we are today, talking about QMS. Then we're going to delve into all of the elements of the QMS. So from start to finish, we'll go through the 7 key elements. Then we are going to have a bit of a look at the solutions that ABN has been able to bring to the table. Some still working on with your matchsticks, mate.
Yep.
So there's 2 approaches there, the assisted approach and the supported method. And I hear you're willing to put your neck out and go for a bit of a live demo of the QMS intensive. Just a little snippet.
Mate, you always get nervous about live demos and technology, but anyway, we'll give it a crack.
Yeah.
I really want to show people this thing. It is so good.
Oh, I know you're pretty pleased with yourself. So look, I want to share briefly an overview of the QMS rules so that today's audience understands why it is we're actually got to this point and why we're sitting here today flapping our bottom lips, as my dear dad used to say. Government decided to instigate a whole pile of additions to the Code of Professional Conduct as a result of the PwC scandal, and they mostly came to bear last year. We've discussed a lot of those in previous episodes of Bookkeeper Radio. Not going to go over that territory. The requirement for agents to have a documented QMS is contained in Section 40 of the Tax Agent Services Code of Professional Conduct Determination 2024. Is that a mouthful? This legislation was passed back in October last year, and since then the TPB have been producing an information sheet. They call it TPB number I-48/2024, and they're all on the slide there if you want to have a bit of a read. And if you're really having trouble sleeping, I suggest you go and download them and have a good read. That information sheet was only delivered to our inboxes on the 23rd of December, so just in time for Christmas. And since then, organisations like ours have been scrambling to provide practical guidance how to comply with the QMS code item.
Yep.
And you've read it?
Mate, I have read the TPB information statement I-48/2024.
You have?
Christmas Day, got it out, had a good read.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was riveting.
No, but look, there are some key takeaways in that document that shape what a BAS agent's QMS needs to consider. And of course, we're going to have a little bit of a look at some of that stuff now.
Yeah, so look, we've got a fair bit of territory to cover, so we're going to probably actually skip over a little bit of what's in that information sheet because we've got to get down to effectively the meat and potatoes of how we're going to get through this thing. But the TPB's information sheet had a really nice flowery definition of the purpose of a QMS, but in simplified terms, essentially what they're saying, it's an overarching document that ties together the critical elements of your business that ensures consistent delivery of quality. That's my short-circuit version of their wording, which they go for a few more paragraphs.
Yeah.
So what are the elements of a QMS? That's where we need to get down and dirty. The TPB shaped its view on the inclusions of a QMS by reference to the accounting ethical standards. This is a mob of standards that the accounting firms or the accounting industry largely salute. It's called APES 320. The standard includes 7 key elements that need to be considered in your QMS. So you've got a little slide there, which is terrific. So the 7 of them are governance and leadership, professional standards, acceptance and continuance of client relationships and specific engagements, resources, engagement performance, information communication, monitoring and remediation, and more on those as each of those relevant elements as we go through. We're going to cover off on those in a reasonable amount of detail. So
Yeah. Just going to address a couple of issues. Firstly, yes, it is for BAS agents. Tax agents, you're welcome to join us as well, but this is specific for BAS agents, this one. If your volume's low, can you just, we did a test this morning, all the volume and everything is working fine here. If you just hit your little speaker in your right-hand bottom corner of your own screen, just dial up your own volume, that'll assist you with your volume. And no, you do not need to lodge a QMS with the TPB.
Correct.
Sorry, mate, continue.
And yes, this is going to be recorded and you'll have access to it at a later date. So in addition to the 7 elements that were adopted from the APES standards, the TPB also expect that the QMS provides the practitioner with a reasonable amount of confidence that they're complying with TASA, including the Code of Conduct, the breach reporting rules, which are new, well, I say new, effective from last financial year or this financial year, and the new code items that we've been speaking a bit about over the last several Bookkeeper radio episodes. That information sheet makes it really clear that the level of internal controls are going to vary from one practitioner to the next. So it's going to vary on things that will change, like the size of the practice, the level of day-to-day involvement of a registered agent, the complexity of the services being provided, but also the complexity of the affairs of the clients that you've got. So in reality is everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different, yep. And the QMS has got to be a little bit different.
A little bit tailored. Yep.
You're not going to get it off the shelf and know one size fits all.
Nope.
And get the job done.
Nope.
So the information sheet makes it clear that the TPB would expect smaller firms, and that would apply to most of our BAS agent members.
Yep. Pamela asked the question, does it apply to a sole trader? The answer is...
Similar is yes.
Yes, it does.
Yep. But yeah, so it does apply to smaller firms. And that does include our cohort,
Yep.
And some of those are really micro, and some of them have got teams of quite a reasonable number of people. But it's going to vary from less sophisticated to quite detailed. So look, where you are a smaller firm, it's going to be okay to have less sophisticated and detailed internal control procedures. And they provide some examples of some of those things that we might be familiar with, such as engagement letters, regular software updates, document security, staff recruitment, training policies, and more. And a lot of those things are going to apply. It doesn't matter whether you've got a big firm, a big yep. practice, or a little practice. But things like staff and what have you,
yep.
you don't have any.
Yep.
That's going to be a little bit different.
That's right. Doesn't apply to you. Yep.
So documenting your QMS is mandatory, and the information statement explicitly indicates that even a sole practitioner without staff is still required to have the document and maintain and enforce internal controls. However, they may be tailored and scaled as appropriate to the circumstances and the services that are being provided by the individual firm.
You are spot on, mate. That's yep. Paragraph 82 of Information Statement 48/2024. So, sort of got it memorised in here.
You memorise all this stuff, don't you?
Yeah, that's right, mate. No, but it is mandatory for all BAS agents, as Pete says. There are no exceptions, and it can be tailored or should be tailored to suit the size of the practice, the complexity of the services provided, etc. Now, Pete, we've been receiving plenty of inquiries on this problem, haven't we? As we know that, there are lots and lots of very small practices out there. I was talking to a lady in Sydney, part-time, 3 clients, saying, do I need one of these things? And if I do, I'm probably going to get out. Don't do that because we have. Don't do that because we have the solution for you.
Yeah, Just because you have to have one of these, it doesn't have to be this big. It can be this big, so it's going to be tailored.
Yep.
Cuddy, we are really absolutely getting smashed. Our helpline, social media channels, they're being belted by the QMS issue, and it tells us that there's still, in my mind, a serious amount of serious gaps in the understanding of what's actually required here. So hopefully, after today's QMS session, the issue becomes a whole lot clearer. So let's keep in mind that the QMS is an overarching document. It just identifies and deals with the risk that your business has, as well as tying together all of the resources that you currently employ to ensure that you deliver quality in everything you do. Big sort of overarching statement, but its purpose is not to replicate everything you do. It's the matter of tying that in and addressing risk issues, and we're going to get into that in some detail shortly.
Yeah,
mate, you've been doing an enormous amount of work on the problem to deliver a solution for BAS agents. Look, can you tell us a bit about your preferred solution? I'm going to jump around a little bit in this episode, aren't we? So we're going to jump a little bit to a solution, and it'll probably make a bit more sense about the context of the things we speak about after that.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Well, mate, the solution for me, it's obviously the most important piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
No point having a problem if you can't find the solution. But because the QMS is mandatory, no exceptions, and time is tight, obviously must be in place by 30 June 2025 for a 1 July kickoff. Much of the concerns that have been raised with us are about the small agent. So, the person who works part-time, a handful of clients, telling us it's all too hard, they don't have the time, and they don't want an enormous cost to implement this thing.
No.
So those concerns, I guess, have been at the heart of my thinking when looking for a solution, so that really every BAS agent, can have, firstly, an understanding of the issues that are, or what makes up a solid QMS. And I guess most importantly, how to provide a tailored solution for your business so that you don't have to spend the hundreds and hundreds of hours that I have putting together a quality management system manual, and that is a fair indication of the time. And it incorporates, I guess, all the things that you should have. We'll talk about a thing called APES 320 as we go. That's what the TPB and the code have premised the quality management system off. So if you put that into, I guess, dollars, mate, you're probably talking $7,000 to $10,000 of a BAS agent's time wasted in putting together one of these things if they don't have a solution.
Yeah, and that's money better off in your pocket than channeling that time into building something else.
Yeah, so instead, look, what we've done is we've done the hard yards for you. We've created a thing called a quality management manual builder. It's now up to you guys to determine if you want this solution, and I reckon it's going to cost you around about 4 to 5 hours of your time. That's my honest opinion. If you follow the instructions and do all the things that we ask of you, then 4 to 5 hours of your time, you will produce an overarching quality management manual, which you then continue to build out with your procedures, checklists, templates, etc. Okay, so you don't have to sell your firstborn child to get access to these things. So for me, that ticked a lot of the boxes. The smallest of the small, the biggest of the big. You will all be able to build one of these things with this tool I'm about to demo. So why don't we get into it, mate? Are you happy?
Yep, happy. Let's get started. I'm keen.
All right.
I've already seen this. I'm still excited.
All right, let me bring this up. And I just want to bring this one up as well. All right. All right, so what you've got on your screen there is the quality management manual builder. Okay, so this is a little Excel spreadsheet that we've put together that is going to assist you to build your quality management manual, which is then supported by a range of documents, etc. Now, this is the beta version, so if you see some hiccups and stuff in it, we're addressing those progressively, and it'll be fully compliant and ready by the 6th of May. Now, where you start with this thing is in the admin tab. That's the tab on your screen there at the moment. So up here, basically you're completing all your own details. That's the data collection point. So it's details about your business, your BAS agent, the services you offer, etc., etc.
This is profiling your business.
Profiling your business, yep. Now, some of these things are drop-down menus. So at the moment, I've just sort of populated what would be typical BAS agent style services. If there's something that you want to add to your typical library, then you can go in here, just drop it into this library that I've just brought up there. Now, if you were to put it into there and then go back to your admin builder, you would find it then nice and neatly dropped into the drop-down menu. So they're your standard services. If you want to customize a service that you might do periodically, then just drop it into there in that custom service field, and I'll show you where all this information goes shortly. The other thing I guess I wanted to briefly show you was this supporting documents list. Now, this is going to be progressively built out as well, and I'll show you where this and how this implements into your quality management system. But again, if you've got certain documents or checklists or things that you use in your business, you'll be able to drop them into here. We'll populate them with a lot of information. There'll be different parts of it. There'll be, if you're an ABN member, you already have access to an enormous amount of tools and templates and checklists in your ABN Member Centre. I'll drop those into here with just, available in Member Centre. You'll be able to access them from there. If you're not an ABN member, you'll also be getting a range of tools and checklists that support this, but not the full Monty. And you can also help then build, your own out by any of the systems that you might use in your own, in your own checklist, your own management services, etc.
So these supporting docs, they're the things that we already use day to day in our business that guarantee quality. They're
Correct.
the things that we do, the checklist, the process we follow to get a quality outcome.
Yep. So it could be a thing like a new client checklist. It could be a thing like an engagement letter. Anything that sort of supports the quality of the work that you do. And I'll show you where all this fits into the whole piece in a minute.
I am keen.
You're keen. All right. So the next part that you go through is then this standard text library. Now, at the absolute heart of any system of quality management is risk. Okay. Now that's not my myth. That's a fact coming straight out of APES 320, which is the professional standard that the TPB have premised all this on. So APES 320 basically says at the heart of your quality management system is risk. And that's the underlying premise that we have to deal with.
So if we mitigate risk, we deliver quality.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's the idea of it. So what's required to be done for QMS is identify your risks that could occur in your business and that hamper the quality of everything you do, based on the 7 quality elements that Pete outlined earlier. And we're going to have a little bit of a look at more in that, of the detail of those after the demo. So hang around for what's in those 7 quality elements. Now, you have to establish a policy surrounding that potential risk. So that sort of basically considers what controls or procedures you have in place or you can implement that manage the risk or mitigate that risk. So I guess what the ABN builder has embedded in it is this risk library. So we've pre-populated a lot of risks. At the moment, I've just got a sample in there for today's demo, but there'll be an awful lot of risk in there. And again, they're simply using a drop-down methodology. So if you sort of want to pick a particular category, there's the 7 categories in there. If you want to pick a risk description, then you select from the standard library that's going to be in here. And I'll show you how you can do all of that in a sec. It comes with pre-populated fields for quality objective, policy statements, and controls and procedures. Now, the part that's missing is identifying which of all these risks, because I've been mucking around with it this morning, so some are in there, but which one of these risks would you actually like to include in your quality management register? Okay, or quality management register, and we'll talk about that. So as you go through this, let's just pick an example as we work through. So let's take this one here. Leadership tolerates non-compliance with internal policies to keep clients. So leadership doesn't enforce their internal policies because they're basically compromising the standards that they want. So you kind of go, well, yep, that's a risk. There's my policy statement. We really should have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to non-compliant clients. And so you go, yep, that's a risk I want to at least consider. I may not eventuate to it because I might have some great policies already around that, but it's something I want to consider.
And all of those information, the quality objective, policy statement, controls and procedures are pre-populated that you can add to if you need to.
Yep.
But they're pre-populated. You're only making a decision on that risk description. Does it apply to me?
That's right. So all of this here is pre-populated for you. There'll be a whole library of these risks. This part of the process is simply going through and identifying those risks that you would like to consider further.
Yep.
So not every risk. Don't go and click the whole lot. You'll have 250 risks to consider. Don't do that.
They're the ones that apply to your business.
Ones that apply to your business.
Correct.
And you might have ones that you're already considering and go, well, that's not a risk because I'm already doing that well.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just pick a couple so we can do this for a demo. We'll pick this one down here, which revolves around repeat issues not being addressed. I want to pick some out of each area because I want to see what it does. I want you to see what it does. We'll pick this one here, which is failing to understand legislative changes. Let's see, we'll pick that one there, false or misleading statements. That's all whistles and bells at the moment. We'll pick that one.
And we're not actually saying we're doing these things wrong. What we're saying is this is a risk to our business.
This is a risk to our business.
If we don't do it right.
If we don't do it right. And it may be something that at this stage of the process, it's about considering the risk.
Yeah.
Not saying you're doing it badly.
No.
It's just saying these are the risks that could occur in my business and I now want to consider them more because that's the next part of the process.
Okay.
So we're going through all of these risks and we're just identifying, simply double clicking on there. If you make a mistake and you go, no, I don't want to do that one, you just drop it back out again. If you come down here, we just put a couple into each. We're going to there, going to there, going to there, going to there. All right. So once you've actually selected a range of risks that you're happy to now consider further.
Yep.
So of the entire risk library, these are the ones you'll kind of go, well, I think I want to have a bit more of a think about this and whether I'm doing it right.
That first column, that is the 7 elements essentially that the TPB requirements to include. So actually, they marry up to the 7 elements of QMS risk, don't they?
That's right. These things here called quality objective categories. That's your 7 risks. If you want to kind of have a look at them, I'll cancel that because I won't do that. Yep. But yeah, all the quality objectives there are the 7 elements that are incorporated into your quality risk according to the TPB.
Yep.
All right, so once you've actually selected the risks that you want to identify to look further at, as I say, don't select every one. These are the ones you just look at and go, yep, I think I need to consider that further. You've marked yes in your little column over here. Now you're going and creating with this button up here, your quality risk register. Come on.
So it is a live demo, big fella.
It is a live demo. Oh, I don't like it when it does that. No. What's it doing? Why does it want to do that? I'm going to get out.
Demos.
I'm going to get out and do it again.
Are you?
Yep. I'm going to start, stop, restart it.
So it'll be working perfectly on 6th of May, won't it?
It will be. That's the good thing about it. Open him up.
You're going to have to go and re-identify your risk.
That's all right.
You can do it quickly?
Yeah.
No, it's still there.
Populates. Rightio. Oh, come on. All right. Oh, there we go. It was thinking about it.
Oh,
all right.
It wasn't that hard, computer.
It's identified the 11 risks. It might be because I'm sharing it, so it probably doesn't like to be shared. But anyway, it's identified the 11 risks that are now copied to my QMS risk register. So I go, wonderful, fantastic. Thank you for working on a live demo. Now we go over to this little register here, which is our risk register. So you can see that it's populated those 11 risks that we selected on our little screen. And this is the next phase of your risk identification and processing journey. Now, you might have already in your system a range of supporting documents that you can add to that particular risk element. So again,
things that you're already doing,
things that you're already doing.
Using. Yep. Checklist for this, checklist.
So
for
if
that.
I look at this one, it's accepting clients without risk. Okay, so I might have a new client checklist. I might have an engagement letter, which might be in there. I'll have an onboarding checklist. So there'll be some pre-populated ones in here. But if you've also got checklists, processes, procedures that you use, then you're allowed to, this is free text as well. So you can get in there and do that sort of stuff. Cool. So for each risk, we're identifying those supporting documents.
Yep.
The important part now is the risk rating. How do we actually rate this risk, and do we want to continue with it further?
Yep.
Now we're going to talk about the risk matrix when we get into the details. I'm not going to deal with it heavily here. But really what the risk rating that you're applying to it is based on a concept of the likelihood of it occurring.
Yep.
And if it does occur, what are the consequences? And from that, you can kind of go, well, it might only occur rarely, and when it does occur, it doesn't matter that much. So I give it a really, really low risk rating. So I might go, oh, well, I've got some great procedures around my onboarding of new clients. So the risk rating I'm actually going to give to that is very low. So I'm not going to talk about it at all. So therefore, do I now want to incorporate that into my quality manual at all? The answer for that is no, because I've actually got a really good system around that already. So now if I work through each of these other ones, I won't go and fill out the supporting checklists and stuff. Actually, I'll just drop a couple in there because I want you to see what it populates at the end. I'll just drop some random ones in there. Now for this one, you kind of go failing to disengage from unethical clients. Now
that wouldn't happen.
You might not have any processes around that, and if it does occur, or if you have an unethical client, the risk could be enormous to you.
It could be huge.
Yep. So you kind of okay, I'm going to put that as a really high risk.
Yep.
And if I accidentally go no here,
for what? I want to do something about it.
If I actually go no, I don't want to do anything about it, it's going to prompt you. There's a little warning that pops up and says, "Okay, are you sure? You've just identified as a high risk. Come on, think about it again."
Yep.
So you go, no. So now you go back in here and go, yes, I do want to populate that into my quality management manual. So if we just go through now, because I don't want to waste too much time on this again, we'll just go hi. We'll go yes. And we'll populate a few just so you can see. We'll go tolerable. We'll go yes.
You've done this before.
I have. We'll go low and we'll go no. All right, so that'll do us for the moment. So once you've actually got to this point now, you've gone through in this case, 11 risks that we identified as the ones that are of concern. You've now rated them into low through to very high. So now the ones that you've actually said, yep, I still want to manage these risks. And look, there could be ones in there that you still rate as a low risk rating that you might still want to consider.
Yep.
So it's just whatever you do. But whatever you put into this column over here, the risk management column, wherever you select yes to that, that is going to populate your quality management manual. So once you've sort of gone through your risks, you've identified the supporting documents, you've allocated it a risk rating, and you said, yes, this is a risk I genuinely need to manage. We hit this wonderful little button here, and hopefully it does a lot more than what it does last time.
Give it a rip. Let's see how we go.
Now I just need to bring that over to there. And hopefully you can see that on your screen. So this is your quality management manual now being produced. You've got all of your details up there that's been populated through that admin section on your Excel spreadsheet. If you want to, you can insert a logo. You've got the table of contents about what you've just produced. There's some standard stuff in there, but then it populates from all the other stuff as well. So obviously the quality management system purpose and scope is an important statement. So you're actually saying why you're doing it. Should the TPB actually ever require you to sort of say, can you have a bit of a look at this? There, it gives you your practice details in there. It also tells you the last time that we actually considered it. So you've actually said, like, the last time I reviewed this was this date. So you can update it, which we'll talk about remediation and continuation of this going forward. All the services that you selected through that service library, you only select the ones that obviously relate to you. You've got additional services if they're not in the standard list. And now we get into the meat of the register, which is your actual risk management part. Each of the 7 elements has the standard verbiage around what it is that particular element is trying to address. And then for all the risks that you've actually selected a yes to, it now drops them in here for you. So there's your quality objective, there's your risk, there's your policy around it, your controls and procedures, any supporting documents you've actually got with it. And it runs through that for each of the 7 elements. I obviously didn't populate any in there, that's why there's nothing in there. Acceptance and continuance, there's quality objectives that you've selected, your risk description, your policy, your controls, your supporting docs. Obviously didn't select any resources. There's your engagement performance stuff. So, mate, there it is.
There's your 7 elements.
There's your 7 elements in a full bespoke, because there will be no 2 of these alike.
No.
Bookkeepers will have different services. They'll have different risks.
Different risk
they'll
levels.
have different risk levels.
Yep.
So a fully compliant TPB manual based on APES 320, saving you hundreds and hundreds of hours of time.
So the issue is really around that population of the kit.
It is, yep.
Identifying the risks, rating them, adding your own resources.
Yep.
But the rest of it is flows from those decisions you've made.
Yep, that's it.
And this is not a confession time either, is it? Like, you might build something there and go, oh, I have some work to do. And that's the point of it.
Yeah. It's not. It cannot just be an off-the-shelf bespoke.
No.
Sit here, check the box, throw them in the bottom drawer, and there you go.
No.
This thing
You can do that, but you're wasting your time.
Yeah, it's got to be about identifying those risks in your business and actually managing them. That's the whole idea of it. That's why the TPB said you got to have one.
Oh, I just thought it was a silly idea to annoy us all.
Well, it actually might bring out some good stuff, because there are some issues that we do hear about, and you kind of go, oh, that's probably a quality management thing that you need to be considering. So there you go.
Right. Excellent. Thank you for that. That is a good thing, but that's probably handy, because that'll sort of, like those 7 elements, they'll come out. We're going to start talking about those shortly. But glad for the insight. Shows us how we can comply with the QMS regulations and requirements simply without a massive time impost. I can see how your 4 to 5 hours is more than reasonable here. You could probably have a cup of coffee in that time too, I reckon.
Yeah, I honestly think if you sat down, went through that risk register, identified it all, you were talking 4 to 5 hours of your time, but you've had a serious internal look at your business. You've created a quality management manual, and then you're slotting into that your procedures, checklists, everything. It's a cascading system.
There's not a lot of time typing in this, is there?
No, we're trying to take out the time element.
Yeah.
So and the cost as well.
good work. And so the elements we're going to go through next, you can see they line up with the chapters in your QMS document. While, as we're going through those, they can appear daunting. The fact that you've shown us a solution in front of that will probably help put it into a little bit of perspective. By simply working through the risk your practice faces and tagging those resources that we spoke about and you showed us, you've basically, you're nearly at the end. You're producing a QMS that's absolutely tailored to your business. Captures the 7 elements that we're going to talk about shortly.
Yep.
It's produced quite readily, and it's importantly, it's easy to maintain as changes happen in your business. And we know that we take on new and different clients, or new and services come along, or new legislation hits us, that sort of stuff. So it needs, this thing has to be live. Look, the important thing is you put risk at the heart of the product. And I can see that to create a QMS document, it's essential to understand a thorough risk assessment on each of those elements. So before we get back into those 7 elements, let's just chat about risk for a moment. Let's share with listeners a graphic on risk assessment that I think I borrowed this from your soon-to-be released manual, QMS for BAS Agents. That's the original title, I thought.
It was, yeah. I'll just bring that up on the screen, mate. So just bear with me 1 second.
So when we get that graphic up there, it's quite a good graphic as to the process that's involved in essentially assessing risk. So next one.
Yep. Just bump my hand.
Sorry, mate.
Just as I was about to push the button.
Right.
Hey,
I think
old Hardy comes in.
I reckon it's the one before, big fella.
It's the one before.
That's the one.
There we go.
That's it. The risk assessment process.
Yeah. All right, well, mate, as you saw in the demo that I just did, that whole element about QMS and the 7 elements that we're about to run through now are all about identifying what risks I face as a practicing BAS agent for each of those elements, and then considering how those risks are treated or mitigated and managed through your policies, checklists, procedures, supporting documents, etc., etc. So I guess a lot of what I've seen being promoted as a QMS are your supporting procedures.
Yeah.
And let's face it, like, I mean, they're important. They're valid
Absolutely.
in the process. They do form part
It's part of how you manage
of
the
an
risk.
overall functioning QMS.
Yeah.
So they are there, but they're a layer down.
Yeah.
So they're a layer down. And let's face it, like, every BAS agent uses a different combination of software, add-ons, tools, templates, checklists, etc. So everyone's going to be a little bit different, which is why this thing's so important, because it actually produces you a bespoke system tailored to your absolute risks.
Your risk and the processes you use.
Yep. Look, an easy way to explain it, I guess, is an example. So let's say I've got an issue in an client engagement, or the issue is an client engagement letter. So sending the engagement letter is the outcome. So that's the procedure, that's the actual outcome. But it's part of a bigger process, which is your quality management system. So the quality management piece in that, what are the risks to my business if I don't do something? So if I don't send the engagement letter, or I send a poor engagement letter, what are the risks? So the risks, no matter what size I am, so even a small BAS agent should be sending out an engagement letter. If I don't appropriately word that engagement letter, the risk could be that I end up with an unclear or disputed scope of services. So I could have a poor outcome from the client going, oh, I thought you were going to do that. Oh, no, I don't do that. You do that. So poor scope of services, it could be an absence of a client authority. So normally the client signs the engagement letter, sends it back and says, I authorise you to do these things for me. There you go. So that's another important reason to have
unclear instructions.
It could be result in disputes over fees. Normally your engagement letter sets out the fees and those sort of things that are in it. So I guess what I'm saying is the engagement letter is the procedure, the process. The risk is, should I monitor it? Should I have one? And that's the quality management piece, the quality management manual. Understand?
I get it.
Right.
I hear you.
Good stuff.
Yep.
So this slide that we're talking to here, this risk assessment process that Pete just spoke about, it really comes through as a result of each of the thank you, Andrew. Sorry, just had someone tell us that there was a slight issue with one of the things, but that's fine. We'll just solve that. So our quality management manual is based on these 7 premises, and the first one is this concept of identifying risk, and that's basically establishment, identification, analysis, treatment, monitoring, review, communicate and consult, and document. So we're going to have a chat about each of those now.
Yeah. This is the risk profiling we spoke about when we were looking in the document, weren't we?
Yeah, yep. So as I mentioned, in terms of the risk profiling piece, so down here you've got a likelihood of a risk occurring. You've also got a consequence of occurs. So as I said, like, if I think about another example, a cyclone. We just had one here in Brisbane recently.
We did.
So the likelihood of us getting a cyclone in here in Brisbane is probably on the unlikely side. We get one every sort of 30 or so years. So it's unlikely. I wouldn't say it's rare, but it's unlikely. But if it occurs, then it's catastrophic. It could be catastrophic. I might lose, or my clients might lose all sorts of infrastructure, businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So I might want to put in place a risk management strategy around should that event occur. Yeah. It may not happen often, but it could be one of those ones that's
high consequence.
A very low risk of occurring, but very high in terms of its consequences.
You may well want to manage that risk.
Yep. So they're the sorts of things that you have to consider when you're weighing up your risk rating in the quality management tool. So that's kind of that, where are we there? That's the analysis and evaluating component part. If we talk about the, treatment or managing the risks, I guess once you have a risk rating, the next step is to consider the treatment of that.
Yeah.
The risk control or management involves selecting and implementing those mitigation or limiting techniques. And let's face it, you're never going to eliminate risk. That's why we've got insurances for.
That's right.
So you're never going to eliminate it, but these things are about managing it. So risk management's about the whole process of selecting a risk policy, et cetera, et cetera. You had something you want to say, big fella?
We just got a little prod that we should be telling listeners that...
Yes, we have had a few pop up in chat.
And they come up in chat, that we should be talking about how do you get hold of the QMS and what are the two alternatives we're going to offer for both members and non-members. We are going to get into that in some detail in a little while, but Leanne's going to throw in, if you like, the QMS
and you
intensive option.
You can just scan it on your screen there as well. I've just brought up a slide there where you can scan it. If you're looking at this now going, yep, must have one of those, then that's the QR code there. Just scan that QR code and that'll take you right there.
It does work. I tried it this morning.
Did you?
Yeah.
And Leanne will also take you into...
But we want to... There's options here, whether you're a member or a non-member, to get your best way through this process. And we will touch base with them straight after the 7 points we're going to jump on.
Yep. All right, so treatment and management, that's kind of that element. So it's about selecting your procedures, your processes, etc. Monitoring and reviewing, as you'd expect, risk management is dynamic. It's not set and forget.
No.
You've actually got to look at this thing. The TPB actually suggests once every year, an annual review of your risk management. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Am I still doing it right? Do I need to implement anything else? Some risks might move off your quality management manual. Some risks might move on.
Yep.
But it's about sort of keeping it up to date. The communication and consulting piece is really nothing other than if you do have staff or contractors, then you need to tell them what your processes and procedures are to maintain that quality and manage your risks. So that's the communication piece. And then the document revising is, of course, just maintaining that quality management manual through that risk builder that I just showed you.
Yep.
So there we go.
Hey, we're going to push through. Look, the risk penny has dropped with me, big fella. It's all about managing the risk. So we're going to move on and talk about the 7 elements. And we're going to probably deliberately be a little bit short on them. But the manual that will be available on the 6th of May for all ABN members will have a lot of detail on these 7 elements. So don't have to get your pen out and paper. It's all going to be delivered free of charge into everyone's hands who's an ABN member on the 6th of May. Yeah.
A couple of people saying there that they can't attend on the day. Look, it's actually a series of recorded videos that will talk you through the elements. So there's a CPE learning in it as well. If you want to wander through the videos and the elements, then there's up to 10 hours worth of CPE if you want that as well.
We are going to touch base on the workings of this thing, but it's much like if you did the STP2 intensive, come and go as often as you like. You'll have a login.
It's open for
your pace. You want to do
3
an
months.
hour, half an hour at a time, go for it. So, it's free access. It's not a live event. It's an access. It's a platform from which you're going to get all the information delivered. And you just come and go till you finish building.
And the reality is too, mate, that the important piece is that you have your quality management manual kind of there and ready to go. So that's what the quality management manual builder is. You'll then identify risks that you may not necessarily have the checklists and procedures for. So it's about starting to then build those things as well to get them in place, as you identify those risks.
Let's fly into those 7 elements and get through them reasonably quickly. So the first one there was governance and leadership.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about governance and leadership, big fella.
Well, mate, governance and leadership, I guess, it's the foundational piece. It's talking about tone at the top. If you think about what good governance and leadership is for BAS agents, it means that we practice what we preach.
Yeah.
So we establish quality objectives, we support an ethical position, we're competent in our jobs, and we produce a compliant outcome.
Yeah.
So, and that's us as people, individuals, and so it's about governance and leadership is the cultural piece, the ethics of your business.
Yeah.
Next
one. So we're going to look at professional standards and ethics. That's spelled TH, not 2 Fs. I found that the other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ethics.
All right, mate, the principle of the ethics piece is, I guess it flows on from that governance element, but it's already embedded in the code. So these are the things that we have known about for over a decade now. Trust and integrity, the regulatory compliance, the public interest role, and professional standards. So, it's things that the TPB have already well and truly established with us.
Yep.
It's clients who rely on BAS agents for accurate, timely information. Don't breach your ethical standards, otherwise you end up in the poo with the TPB.
You do.
And we're seeing more and more activity from the TPB now. We're seeing cases actually be prosecuted. The public interest role is obviously there, and it's a big one. That's what started all this, was the loss of public interest from a certain accounting firm. And then obviously professional standards. So in terms of those things, that's what we're dealing with in the standards and ethics space.
Yep. And if we are glossing over this, we are. There's 150 odd pages of manual. It's got some great detail on the 7 elements. So we'll commend that to you on the 6th of May. That brings us to that third element, big fellow, the QMS. And that's the decision. This is a pretty important one. It's the decision to accept a new client or continue acting for an existing one. So what's this element? Why is this one so important?
The TPB, for whatever reason, I guess they're right, placed a fair bit of weight on this one when they issued their information statement.
Yep.
And I guess it's a difficult one. Like, you don't want to not take on a bad client, because how do they get dealt with?
That's right. Someone's got to take on one. Yeah. Otherwise.
And by a bad client, I don't mean an unethical client. They just might simply have poor records.
Yeah, they might be in arrears or.
So
that's what we're there for.
Yeah, yep.
Dust them off.
When you think about acceptance and continuance, it's about taking on new or continuing with existing. So that little matrix up there on your screen, it's in the 150 odd page manual. It's part of the QMS intensive, but this chapter talks about the element of what sort of risks revolve around acceptance and continuance of clients. So, and they can be varied. So in other words, there's a compliance risk piece. So in other words, does the client comply with the rules, and are they always pressuring me to do the wrong thing? Do they not have the appropriate records, and they have poor record keeping systems? So there's sort of some of the risks, but there's also a risk for us in our capacity. Yeah. Can we actually take one on?
Yeah. Are we doing work that we got no idea what
That's
we're doing?
right. Yeah. Yep. So it's capacity. Can we take one on? Do we not know the industry that the client is involved in? So there's a whole range of stuff around taking on work that we shouldn't take on. And of course, there's the ethical risk evaluation piece as well. Am I dealing with or currently with a client that is constantly doing the wrong thing, and therefore do I need to retain them as a client? So there's sort of those sort of considerations. And obviously the outcomes of those are, you either accept the client with standards, you accept the client with some basic conditions, or you decline it.
Yeah, so you make a conscious decision whether you engage with them or on what basis.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying no. Yeah, you're allowed to say no.
Are you?
Sometimes.
Mate, the fourth element we're going to jump on is resourcing. Big areas, huge area. The more bigger your team, the more it becomes an issue. A
lot of BAS agents will think, this is just all about staff, but there's a little bit to it more than that. But labour is definitely the key resource to manage. There are sub-elements within labour, so employees, contractors and offshorers. So contractors and offshorers were also brought into the TPB IS by saying, you are now responsible for managing the quality of the output of work of those people.
Yep.
Maybe once upon a time that was sort of something that was overlooked. You kind of go, that's been done, I'll just send it out under your banner. But now you've actually got to manage that process now.
Yeah.
But in addition to labour, there are other resources that a BAS agent needs to consider, appropriately plan and deploy, and that includes things like their IT and technology, and also other service providers that you might bring into the mix. So you might be saying, I'm dealing with a really, really bad tax agent. do I want to deal with this person anymore? Not saying tax agents are bad. I'm just saying
some of them.
they're
all good. Yeah.
But yeah, you've actually got to think about some of these things in terms of the resourcing piece that you have.
It's a really handy matrix in that chapter on the resourcing about that looks at risk in managing those resources. And I think you've got a slide there to grab, but I think it's one off. There's a heap of them on there, but we just grab one just to sort of talk that through. I think it might be your next slide.
Yeah, it is. Yep. So there's about, I think it's 15 or so of these things that are contained in the risk matrix.
Designed to make you thinking about the risk.
Yeah,
of resourcing. The resourcing mix.
Yeah, this is sort of the education piece, the learning, I suppose. But if I just take one, like human resources was the overarching one. Personnel have the competence and capabilities to perform quality engagements. That's the quality objective I want to achieve out of it. The key risk for that is I've actually got staff that are either underqualified or they lack the appropriate skills, or I don't actually supervise them, or a senior team member doesn't supervise them. So that's the key risk. And then the response or mitigation to that is obviously you've got to give them a job description. What are they actually doing? Do they know what they're doing?
Probably told.
Yeah, I've got to be told at least once.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a structured onboarding process for training them into the job that they do. You assign those sort of staff then assignments based on their engagement risk and their experience. So you're not going to give them a really complex client if they're a bookkeeper with no experience. You've reserved that for somebody else.
Yep.
So it's just about thinking about the risks and then trying to think about all the objectives, the key risks, and then how do you respond or mitigate that risk.
Mate, let's jump into the fifth element. That's the engagement performance. Engagement performance that's where the rubber really hits the road.
Yeah.
Does your system of quality management truly stack up? It's how your firm, whether you're a sole practitioner or a bigger business, how does it deliver work to clients that is consistent, compliant, efficient, and client-focused? There's a lot to this element.
There is. This one's probably the biggest one. So in the BAS environment, I guess engagement performance encompasses every stage of that service delivery. So how you actually get your clients, accept them or onboard them or monitor the existing ones. How do you set up your chart of accounts? How do you collect your records from your clients? What's your client's role in supplying those financials? Do they do it on a timely, accurate basis, etc.? Yep, of course, they all do. It looks at your own skills and competency and then sort of coding that work into the system. So, you're applying the right GST codes, etc. So
why is all that important?
So I guess it's for the TPB and delivering quality outcome for the consumer and maintaining trust and integrity in the tax system, it's about that in the main. And so an undocumented informal process won't get you that, but dealing with it in a structured way does, or at least improves it.
Yep. Let's jump on to our sixth element, which is information communication. So why is this element important to BAS agents in their QMS?
Yeah, it's I guess it's the effectiveness that comes in now. So it not only deals with how a BAS agent deals with that internal risk, but it also relies on the quality and timeliness of that information being obtained, being generated, and communicated to third parties. In particular, here we are talking clients or third-party advisors. So when you're dealing with a tax agent at the end of the year, what sort of work are you serving up to them? What systems do you have to get that work to them? What processes do you have to answer queries, et cetera, et cetera? So it's about obtaining, generating and using information, communicating that information either internally if you do have staff or with external parties. How do you get queries back from clients, et cetera, et cetera? But also managing cyber and data security as well. Like that's a massive one when it comes to to information and communication.
I mean, that was quite a large chapter in the QMS Manual, and probably one of the most critical. Information is I call it stock in trade of BAS agents. It's how you deal with it, process it, store it, transmit it, and secure it. And they're all essential elements to quality management. So each of your chapters in the manual has an exercise, which is interesting, to embed the learning. And this chapter has quite a detailed set of exercises around information and communication. So I actually commend those ones too. It's quite a good exercise. Makes you think about a lot of areas that perhaps you may not have thought about them. Where do we go after we identify the risks?
Mate, the last part's a thing called monitoring and continuous improvement. Now, this part here is probably not, even though it's sort of incorporated into the seventh element, it's actually a process. So the objective obviously is that you, as you identify either new risks or weaknesses in your current risk system, then you've really just got to sit down and go, well, I failed in achieving that quality objective that I had. The fail might have been big, and therefore I need to tighten my systems, my processes around that particular piece. So I guess, if you think back 5 to 10 years, recall what we did and how we did it.
Yeah, document your system 10 years ago and have a look. That'll be a time capsule, wouldn't it?
That's exactly it. So it's certainly in there, but it's about continuous improvement and monitoring of your system. So basically that's where we're at, mate.
Mate, well, that's a really quick, and it's a really quick oversight of the 7 elements. The manual, I think it's about 150 pages, so there's a lot more detail and consideration. And there's some good learning if you want to, for CPE, you've got about, I reckon it'll take you a good 10 hours or thereabouts.
Yeah, I've got 8 modules built. I've got 1 to go. Then I'm going to record the videos in relation to each of those modules. So there's going to be some really good learning in there. Look, I agree. There's some of the comments coming through that, why do I have to do this? It's probably a message of don't shoot the messenger. What we're saying is that this is now a requirement. It's go and have a look at it. It's information statement 48/2024. Starts about paragraph 72, ends about paragraph 82, and it's all in there. And it actually specifically says that everyone has to have one, no ifs, buts or maybes, but you do have to consider the size and complexity of what you're doing. And that's why we're saying even the sole trader has to have one, but it doesn't have to be massive. Work through this quality management builder, identify the risks that are for your business and bespoke to you. And then you've already got I've already seen comments coming through. I already have checklists around this. You do. We know you do.
That's right.
Just put them in there. That's how I manage this risk.
Yeah,
and there you are. You have a full quality management system bespoke to your business.
Yeah, the messenger isn't to be shot. He's to be thanked for saving many, many hours, I reckon.
Yeah.
Look, that brings us to our ABN solutions that we've got here. We're going to talk briefly about the things that we've got 2 pathways. I believe that it's a 2-solution approach for those that want to get their way through the QMS maze. The first is what we call the assisted approach. And it's free for all ABN members, where they are assisted by this manual that we spoke of. We call it the QMS system for BAS agents.
Yeah.
They'll have access to that. That'll take them through the 7 areas.
That's right. It's not that Excel spreadsheet. That goes into the intensive. But the manual is what we just outlined, the 7 elements and the 150 odd pages of good stuff that you can and at the end of each one, there's an exercise.
Yeah.
Go and do this.
Yeah.
Go and do this.
Yeah. So it's a good learning in there. And I think chapter 9 heads them off on their way to essentially do it yourself, but with an assistance from that manuel and idea and process.
The chapter 9 will be bringing it all together, so you'll have all the learning in modules 1 to 8. Chapter 9 will be righto, roll up the sleeves, grab your pen and paper, and now start documenting this thing and the steps to do it, but not the builder. And
it'll take you through all the things that we've skimmed over a little bit, the elements of risk and each of the 7 chapters. So you'll have a good understanding from the manual, but it's your pen, paper, your fingers on keyboard that are going to build the thing. So that's the DIY option, free to members.
Yep.
The second solution, we call it the supported approach. That incorporates the QMS intensive and the kit builder you demonstrated earlier. It's a tool that actually builds your quality management system document for you. So the end product, as we saw, is tailored to your business, and it's done diligently, and it should all be in place. You reckon 4 to 5 hours? I think that's quite believable, and you've done justice to the assessment of risk, identification, assessment of risk, and tagging those additional resources that you actually use to deliver quality. So to assist the program supports your QMS understanding with videos you touched on. It provides various templates and checklists. So some of those elements that you've got, you can add your templates, and we've also got some of ours that you may wish to adopt.
Yep.
It includes access to the QMS manual because you'd be a member anyway, but that's access. And along the way, you're going to pick up some pretty valuable CPE if you want to go through the exercise. And those exercises at the end of each chapter are valuable. So probably you reckon about 10 hours of CPE. Having read most of that manual, I'd probably agree with you. It's probably in that order.
And there'll be elements that you don't. So there's a bit of a section in there around resourcing and staff, obviously. So if you're a sole practitioner, that's not for you. So,
correct. Yeah. So, and again, nothing stops you just launching straight in and start building.
No.
And just referring back to that manual if you want some guidance on a particular area. So it could be more of a reference source rather than a read from start to finish.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to jump in there, and Pete, and say, what have you got to in terms of the manual itself? So,
I lost my place, mate.
Sorry, I was calling you.
Oh, look, no, you jump in. Go in, big fella. There's something else that you want to. That's actually involved in the in the.
So in the
approach.
intensive, like I'm aware that obviously this is all new to BAS agents. Accountants might have been doing it for a while, but for BAS agents, it's new. So I'm also going to run probably 3 at this stage. If there's a need for more, I'll just jump in and do another one. But I'm going to run essentially a Q&A session as well on 3 different days, 3 different time slots, where people can actually jump in who have bought the intensive and said, look, I'm having trouble with, and we can actually then get your questions in advance of the session so I know what I'm dealing with. I can come up with the solution for you, and then we can come into that session, have a chat and demo it. So, Yep.
So a bit of hand holding.
Lots of hand holding. Yep.
So there's essentially there is the do-it-yourself option. Now, if you're a member, it's just going to come naturally to you. It'll appear in the members' website.
Yep.
On the 6th of May.
Yep.
Or thereabouts. If you're a non-member and you want access to that approach, that's easy. Just join, and it'll be there with a whole lot of other wonderful resources and things from being an ABN member. If you're not sure what's included, pick up the phone or book a.
That's just the manual you're talking about.
Just the manual.
Yeah.
This is the assisted rather than the intensive approach. The assisted approach is going to be there. It'll be embedded in the member section of the website. So if you're a non-member, all you need to do is join, and you'll have access to it.
Yep.
Second step up is the QMS intensive.
Yep.
If you want to get access to that, then the process.
On your screen.
The process is there. It's on your screen. So hit the QR code. I know it works. I used it myself earlier.
Leanne's also dropped it into chat there. If you don't scan your QR code, you can just click that link that Leanne's just dropped in there. That'll get it to you as well.
I think from memory, there's dual pricing. So if you're a member, it's a whole lot cheaper.
Yep.
If you're not, well, you can rectify it or pay the extra price, I suppose.
Yep.
That gives you access to the full Monty. That's the kit, the build,
Yep.
The extra webinars the Q&A webinars that you spoke of, the videos, the whole Monty. Now that's going to be available on a designated website. That designated website you'll access by a login. Now, if you've already joined and signed up for the QMS intensive, you'll receive login details in the days leading up to the 6th of May. So that will just happen automatically.
Yep.
That website's got a certain amount of educational material. It's got some FAQs on it, and it'll have a doorway, if you like, to come and go as often as you like into the intensive. The aim is not to have to sit there in a big room and do it from start to finish, and hopefully you get it right. It's something you want to work on, consider those risks properly, and work through it. You can pick it up on a self-paced basis. So essentially that's the reason that we've got some time to do it. Let's use the time.
Yep.
So look, that's pretty well us. I think, do we have to touch on pricing? Yeah. So I think it's $270 for a member.
Yes.
Which I think is tremendous value given the amount of time you're going to save.
This was about not like small cost, massive time saving. So I kind of feel that's
Yeah. So for me,
saved you 100
the amount of
hours
time saving and the fact that you end up with a super result is a good outcome.
Toothpicks.
Look, let's run a little poll. I just want to get a sense of how people are facing the task. How they. What do you think your QMS pathway is to get through to compliance by the 30th of June? You're running a little poll?
Yep, running the poll now.
So there's a couple of options there. You're already in. You're now smarter for the presence of today's webinar. You're looking to join shortly. You're looking at the DIY option, which is fine. You made arrangements elsewhere, which again, fine. Or if you want to get some more information on it, because we had to cover a lot of territory today in a short period of time. So Leanne is fully armed. So if you want to glean a little bit more or something wasn't quite clear, pick the phone up, book a call with Leanne, and she'll walk you through any questions that you have. So I think that's
pretty much us, mate.
That's pretty awesome.
I think the poll's still just running through there because we've got so many people online today.
Yeah,
so I'm just going to let that sit there for a minute. But look, at the end of the day, if we recover the things, then there's must have one by 30 June or 1 July. It is a time investment. We're not saying this is just click a button and you'll produce one. You've got to spend 4 or 5 hours going through our risks, add those that aren't there, populate that spreadsheet. The instructions will be very clearly laid out in the intensive. So have a read of those listen to those before you before you head off and start populating away. I'll be doing the Q&As, so there'll be an opportunity to pre-submit your Q&A before I do those on different days at different times, so I can try and cover as many people as I can. Look out in your inbox. If you bought the QMS Intensive, then that'll appear in your inbox. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions. And, mate, I think we're getting
close.
there.
Mate, I think it's a great time to jump in and get it. If you're going to get it started as soon as you can, because we've got end of financial year. We know July's a write-off. You've got some time in May and June. 4 or 5 hours, to my way of thinking, is time well spent in May and June rather than trying to worry about it after the event when you're up into the heat of the battle with the end of financial year.
Yeah.
So, look, I think that's pretty well it for us. Thanks, everyone, for your attention.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
Look, we know it's a lot of work. We know it's a pain in the arse. Are we allowed to say that these days? Probably not.
No, that's arsist or something.
But look, the reality is you've got to do it. And what we're trying to do is just to make it as simple and as effective as possible as we can for you. And I think we might have achieved that through this. If there's other stuff we can do, then we'll continue to look at building stuff. But you'll end up with a bespoke, tailored system to your business. And truly addressing quality. This isn't just a
chicken flick
exercise. No.
You're going to do it, you might as well do it properly.
Yep, absolutely right.
All right, I think that's pretty well up for us.
It is. Thanks for joining us today. Look forward to the next Bookkeeper Radio, which I think is about a week's time. So lining up again in a week.